First Contact Surprise. The massive crystalline vessel of the Galactic Council's First Contact Division emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol system, its prismatic surface refracting starlight in dazzling patterns. Senior Ambassador Vextal stood on the command deck, their forearms clasped formally behind their back, as Earth came into view on the main display. Another primitive world ready for uplifting. Vextal remarked to their aide, Third Secretary Colin. Standard protocol. We'll make contact, guide them through basic space travel principles, and help them join galactic civilization, eventually. Callan nodded, their chromatophores shifting to a respectful shade of blue. The preliminary scans show they've barely reached their moon. This should be routine. The first sign that this wouldn't be a routine mission came when their long-range sensors detected something unusual in the asteroid belt. The Council vessel's AI flagged multiple structures that seemed to be moving. Ambassador, the sensor officer called out, their tentacles writhing in confusion. I'm detecting what appears to be significant mining operations throughout the asteroid belt. But the energy signatures don't match any known technology. Vextal frowned. Impossible. Their historical records show they've only recently achieved powered flight. They couldn't possibly. Incoming transmission. The communications officer interrupted. Well, you should see this yourself. A holographic window materialized in front of Vextal. Instead of the expected primitive radio signals, they found themselves looking at a crystal-clear quantum-entangled transmission. A human woman with dark skin and silver-threaded hair smiled warmly at them. Greetings, Council vessel, she said in perfect galactic standard. I'm Director Chen of the Sol System Development Authority. Welcome to Earth space. We've been expecting you. Vextal's outer membrane rippled in shock. You speak standard, and you have quantum communications. Oh, we picked up your language databases from your preliminary probe last year. Director Chen replied casually. Fascinating encryption you use, by the way. Rather classical approach. Would you like to dock at our Ceres station? The asteroid belt can be tricky to navigate without a proper gravity wake harmonizer. Callan's chromatophores had shifted to a confused purple. Gravity wake. But that's theoretical technology. Even our best scientists haven't. We found it works quite well when you approach gravity as a quantum phenomenon rather than a dimensional one, Chen explained. But perhaps you prefer to see our Mars colony first. The gardens are lovely this time of year. The Council vessel's sensors suddenly registered multiple massive structures appearing from behind what seemed to be localized space-time distortion fields. Orbital rings circled Mars, massive transparent domes dotted its surface, and ships of impossible designs moved effortlessly between them. How? Vextal managed to ask. Your species only achieved powered flight a century ago. Our records show. Oh, those records, Chen chuckled. We had a rather interesting approach to development. You see, while most species focus on making bigger engines and faster ships, we decided to focus on understanding the fundamental nature of reality first. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you crack quantum manipulation before you try to build a rocket. But that's backwards. Colin exclaimed. You can't develop quantum technology without space travel first. It's not possible. Ah, but that's where humanity's greatest strength lies, Chen said with a knowing smile. We don't particularly care what's supposed to be impossible. Would you like to see our quantum computation center? It's actually a single electron expressing itself across multiple timeline variants. Makes your crystalline processors look a bit quaint, I'm afraid. Vextal's diplomatic training was the only thing keeping them composed. Everything they knew about technological development, about the proper order of scientific advancement, was being casually dismissed by these humans who seemed to have ignored the standard path entirely. Director Chen, Vextal said carefully, I believe we need to seriously revise our first contact protocols. Would you be willing to teach us? Chen's smile widened. Of course. That's what we've been hoping for. You see, we've been watching the Council for some time, and we think there's so much we could learn from each other. For instance, have you ever considered that your faster-than-light travel might work better if you stopped trying to break the light speed barrier and instead simply adjusted your relationship with causality? As their ship was guided into dock at the Ceres station by fields of energy they couldn't even properly detect, Vextol realized that this wasn't going to be a mission of uplifting a primitive species. Instead, it seemed humanity was about to uplift the galaxy. The docking clamps engaged with a gentle touch, and through the viewport, Vextol could see humans walking on the station's external surface without suits, protected by nothing they could detect. One of them waved cheerfully at the council ship. "Welcome to Sol," Director Chen said warmly. "Now shall we begin the real cultural exchange?" Looking at Colin's still purple chromatophores, Vextol could only nod. They had come to teach, but it seemed they were about to become students instead. Somewhere in the back of their mind, they wondered if the council was ready for what humanity was about to show them. Cultural exchange chaos. Chief cultural anthropologist Zinra of the Galactic Council fought to maintain their professional composure as they studied the data streaming across their neural interface. After 2 weeks on Earth, nothing made sense anymore. The humans had somehow achieved post-scarcity civilization without following any of the established societal development patterns. "But where is your central planning committee?" Zinra asked Dr. Sarah Martinez, their assigned liaison at the Global Innovation Hub in New Delhi. "How do you coordinate technological development across your species without unified direction?" Sarah laughed, adjusting her gravity-defying wheelchair that seemed to float on a cushion of warped space-time. "That's the beauty of it. We don't. Everyone just creates. We share information freely, and people build on each other's ideas." Zinra's secondary brain struggled to process this concept. But the chaos, the inefficiency. "Watch this," Sarah said, gesturing to the massive holographic display dominating the hub's central atrium. "Hey, global network. I'm wondering if anyone's thought about applying quantum tunneling principles to organic tissue regeneration." Within seconds, the display lit up with hundreds of responses from around the world. Scientists, hobbyist inventors, teenagers with interesting theories, all contributing ideas, building on each other's suggestions, pointing out problems and offering solutions. "You see," Sarah smiled. "Chaos, yes, but creative chaos, organized chaos." Before Zinra could respond, a young human, barely an adolescent, rushed up to them, practically bouncing with excitement. "Dr. Martinez, I was thinking about your quantum tunneling question. What if we combined it with my mom's research on temporal manipulation? We could potentially regenerate tissue by borrowing its past state." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Jamie, that's brilliant. Want to set up a test in the community lab?" "Community lab?" Zinra interjected. "You allow untrained civilians to access advanced research facilities." "Of course," Sarah replied. "Some of our biggest breakthroughs came from people just tinkering around. Like our gravity manipulation technology that was invented by a poet who was trying to create a new form of performance art." Zinra's chromatophores flickered in distress. But the regulations, the safety protocols." "Oh, we have safety systems," Jamie chimed in. "They're quantum AIs that predict potential accidents before they happen and prevent them by slightly adjusting local probability fields. I helped program one last summer for my school project." Zinra made a note to schedule another session with their psychological support unit. Every conversation with humans seemed to require one. They watched as Sarah and Jamie excitedly discussed their impromptu experiment, pulling in other researchers virtually from around the world. "What about your planetary defense?" Zinra asked, trying to find some aspect of human civilization that followed logical patterns. "Surely that must be centrally controlled." "Not really," Sarah said, still working on the holographic models floating around her. "It's more of a collaborative network. Anyone can propose improvements to the system, and the best ideas get implemented automatically. Last month, a group of gaming enthusiasts completely redesigned our orbital defense grid because they thought it would be more fun if it looked like something from their favorite video game. Turned out their design was 30% more efficient. A notification flashed across the hub's main display. Someone in Auckland had successfully tested a prototype based on Jamie's idea, while a team in Lagos had already begun running simulations on potential medical applications. All this had happened in the span of their brief conversation. But how do you prevent chaos? Zinra asked weakly. How do you maintain order? Sarah's expression softened. Maybe chaos isn't something to prevent. Maybe it's something to embrace and direct. Look around you. Every human you see has different ideas, different approaches, different ways of thinking. We don't try to force everyone into the same path. Instead, we created systems that let all those different approaches work together. As if to emphasize her point, the hub's quantum probability field suddenly shifted, and a group of children on a school tour materialized in the atrium. They had apparently teleported in from the Mars colony for their Earth history lesson. Miss Sarah, one of them called out, we figured out how to make the teleporters work with zero energy cost. Want to see? Sarah grinned at Zinra. Want to watch a bunch of 12-year-olds revolutionize transportation theory? Zinra looked at their schedule for the day. They were supposed to be conducting a formal anthropological survey of human social structures. Instead, they found themselves nodding. Yes, I would. As they watched the children excitedly set up their demonstration, Zinra realized something profound. The Galactic Council had always seen technological and social development as a ladder to be climbed one rung at a time. Humans, it seemed, had looked at the ladder and decided to build an anti-gravity elevator instead. Your species, Zinra said slowly, is simultaneously the most primitive and most advanced civilization I have ever encountered. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Oh, how so? You still have nations. You still have conflicts. You haven't achieved the unified planetary consciousness that most species develop before advancing technologically. And yet, Zinra gestured at the hub around them, where impossible technologies were being casually invented by children. And yet you've surpassed us in ways we never imagined possible. Maybe that's exactly why we advanced the way we did, Sarah suggested. We never try to all think the same way. We just figured out how to think differently together. As the children began their demonstration, casually manipulating the fabric of space-time while explaining their theory in crayon drawings, Zinra began composing their report to the council in their head. How does one explain a civilization that had turned chaos into its greatest strength? The Void Crisis. Emergency alarms blared throughout the Galactic Council's central hub as reports flooded in from across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. The Void, as they were calling it, had appeared without warning. A growing region of space where the fundamental constants of physics simply changed. Ships entering the affected zones either disappeared or emerged as twisted masses of altered matter. Entire solar systems were being engulfed. High Counselor Vextal, recently promoted after their groundbreaking first contact with Earth, stood before the emergency session of the Council. The anomaly continues to expand. Our best scientists estimate we have perhaps 3 standard months before it threatens major population centers. What do our models suggest? Asked Representative Cole of the Australian Confederation, their crystalline form vibrating with concern. The models. Vextal hesitated. The models suggest this shouldn't be possible at all. The chamber erupted in worried murmurs. Thousands of years of unified galactic science, and they were facing something that defied their fundamental understanding of reality. That's when Vextal's quantum communicator chimed, a direct call from Earth. Put them through to the main chamber, Vextal ordered. The holographic form of Dr. Elena Santos, Earth's newly appointed Crisis Response Director, materialized in the center of the council chamber. We've been monitoring the situation, Elena said without preamble. We'd like to help. With all due respect, Director Santos, Representative Cole interjected, this crisis involves fundamental forces beyond our comprehension. Elena finished with a slight smile. Actually, We think we know what's happening. We've seen something similar, though on a much smaller scale, during some of our early quantum consciousness experiments. The chamber fell silent. Vextal leaned forward. Explain. We believe the void is a manifestation of conscious observation affecting quantum states on a macro scale, Elena said, gesturing as complex equations appeared around her. Essentially, someone or something is thinking wrong about how reality should work, and reality is adjusting to match. That's impossible, another council member declared. Quantum effects don't scale to macro levels. They do if you have enough entangled particles working in concert, Elena interrupted. We discovered this by accident when we were developing our quantum computing networks. Had a few interesting incidents before we figured out proper containment. She waved her hand, and a new set of holograms appeared, detailed technical schematics that made several council scientists' eyes widen in recognition. We've developed a prototype system we call the reality anchor, Elena continued. It uses a network of quantum-entangled human consciousness to reinforce local physics. Think of it as, well, as reminding space how it's supposed to behave. Human consciousness, Vextal asked. Why specifically human? Because we're messy, Elena said with a grin. Most spacefaring species develop a very structured, logical way of thinking. It's why your technology progresses in predictable patterns. But humans, we never lost our ability to think illogically, to imagine impossible things. Turns out that's exactly what you need when reality itself starts getting creative. You want to fight an impossible phenomenon with impossible thinking, Vextal said slowly, beginning to understand. Exactly. We've already begun constructing a network of reality anchors throughout Earth space. We can expand it to cover the affected regions, but we'll need help with deployment. And, Elena paused, we'll need volunteers from other species to help operate them. The more diverse the consciousness network, the stronger the effect. You want us to link our minds with humans? Representative Cole asked, their crystalline form flickering with uncertainty. Think of it more like a conversation, Elena said. A conversation with reality itself, reminding it of the rules we all agreed on. We humans will provide the creativity to adapt to the void's changes, while your logical minds will help maintain stability. Vextal looked around the chamber, seeing the mixture of fear and hope on the faces of the assembled representatives. How quickly can you begin? We already have ships ready to launch, Elena replied. We just need your permission and your trust. What followed was the largest cooperative effort in galactic history. Human ships, bizarre vessels that seemed to ignore conventional physics, spread throughout the affected sectors. Teams of human quantum engineers worked alongside alien scientists, installing reality anchors and training mixed-species crews to operate them. The void fought back. It twisted and warped, finding new ways to break physics. But for every change it made, human operators adapted, thinking in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did. And when human creativity threatened to spiral out of control, their alien partners provided the stability needed to make their impossible solutions viable. 1 month after deployment, the void began to recede. 2 weeks later, it had shrunk to a manageable size. By the end of the 3rd month, it had been reduced to a small, contained anomaly that actually proved useful for advanced physics research. In the council chamber, Vextal stood again before the assembled representatives, but this time Elena stood beside them in person. The crisis is over, Vextal announced, and we have learned something profound. The very chaos and irregularity that we once saw as humanity's weakness proved to be their greatest strength, and perhaps now it will become ours as well. Elena smiled. We're already receiving requests from across the galaxy for training in human-style problem-solving. Apparently, quite a few species are interested in learning how to think wrong in just the right way. And the reality anchor network? Someone asked. We're leaving it in place, Elena said. Not just as a defense against future anomalies, but as a symbol. A reminder that when we combine human creativity with galactic wisdom, There's no crisis we cannot overcome. As the chamber erupted in appreciative murmurs, Vextal turned to Elena. You knew, didn't you? From the moment you first contacted us. You knew humanity would change everything. Elena's eyes twinkled. Let's just say we had a feeling. After all, imagining impossible futures is what humans do best. Trading tales. Head Trade Commissioner Lix of the Galactic Economic Council massaged their sensory ridges as they reviewed the latest market reports. 6 months after Earth had joined the Galactic Trading Network, the entire system was in what humans would call creative disruption. Centuries of carefully maintained economic balance had been upended by humanity's bizarre approach to commerce. They're doing it again, Lix's assistant reported, displaying a hologram of Earth's latest trading innovation. The humans have introduced something they call a quantum blockchain for transaction verification. It exists simultaneously across multiple probability states until observed. How do they even price something like that? Lix wondered aloud, watching as traditional trading houses scramble to adapt. That's not the worst part, the assistant continued. They're giving away the technology for free. They say it's open source. Lix was about to respond when their office door chimed. Maya Chen, Earth's Chief Innovation Officer, strode in with her characteristic energy. Unlike most officials, she preferred physical meetings to holographic ones, claiming they allowed for better creative resonance. Commissioner Lix, Maya beamed. I hope I'm not interrupting. We've just had some exciting breakthroughs I wanted to discuss personally. Lix gestured to a chair that adjusted itself to human physiology. More disruptions to our carefully balanced system. Opportunities, Maya corrected cheerfully. We've figured out how to synthesize quantum-entangled materials using nothing but thought patterns and basic elements. Should reduce manufacturing costs across the galaxy by roughly 90%. Lix's secondary heart nearly stopped. But the established manufacturing worlds, their economies, will need to adapt, Maya nodded. But we've thought of that. We're proposing to convert their facilities into quantum consciousness training centers. There's huge demand for human-style creative thinking since the Void Crisis. She waved her hand, and a complex network of projections filled the office, showing economic forecasts, transition plans, and opportunity matrices. Lix noticed that each projection seemed to shift and change as they watched it, adapting in real time to new variables. How are you calculating these probabilities? Lix asked, professional curiosity overcoming their concerns. We're not exactly calculating them, Maya admitted. We've developed a system that dreams them, combines quantum computing with artificial consciousness and a dash of human intuition. It's basically imagination turned into mathematics. Dreams them, Lix repeated weakly. You're basing galactic economic policy on dreams? Works better than you'd think. Maya grinned. Our dream markets predicted the success of the Reality Anchor network long before we built it. Speaking of which, she pulled out what looked like a small crystal, but its edges seemed to fade into possibilities. We've miniaturized the Reality Anchor technology. We're planning to release these as consumer devices next month. They'll allow anyone to create small zones of altered physics for personal use. Lix stared at the crystal. You're going to let ordinary citizens modify the fundamental constants of reality. With safety limiters, of course, Maya assured them. Nothing too dramatic. Just enough to, say, create a personal gravity field, or temporarily step sideways in time to avoid being late for work. The insurance implications alone. Lix began. Already handled. Maya interrupted. We've developed a new form of probability insurance. Instead of paying for things that go wrong, it prevents them from going wrong in the first place by subtly adjusting quantum outcomes. We call it presurance. Lix leaned back in their chair, trying to process the implications. Ms. Chen, in the past 6 months, humans have introduced technologies and concepts that have completely restructured our economic understanding, giving away advanced technology for free dream-based market predictions, probability manipulation as a consumer product, How do you expect the galaxy to adapt to all this? Maya's expression softened the same way we did, by embracing the chaos and finding the patterns within it. Look at this. She adjusted the holographic display to show a galaxy-wide economic map. Points of light represented trading hubs, connected by flowing lines of commerce. Traditional galactic trade looked like this, she said, showing a rigid, hierarchical structure. Then she overlaid Earth's new trading patterns. The new connections were organic, adaptable, forming and reforming based on need and opportunity. It's not chaos, she explained. It's a different kind of order. One that grows from the bottom up instead of being imposed from the top down. Like a living thing. A living economy, Lix mused, beginning to see the pattern. But what about stability? Security. That's the beauty of it, Maya said. When everything can adapt, nothing can truly fail. A rigid system breaks under pressure. A flexible one bends and grows stronger. She stood up, straightening her quantum-woven jacket that seemed to shift colors with her movements. We're not just trading goods and services, Commissioner. We're trading ideas, possibilities, dreams. And those are resources that never run out. As Maya left, Lix studied the evolving patterns on the economic display. Humanity had taken one look at the carefully structured galactic economy and decided to turn it into what they called an open-source collaborative network. And somehow, impossibly, it was working. Their assistant cleared their throat. Should I update our economic forecasts? Lix watched as another trade route spontaneously formed, connecting two worlds that had never previously interacted. No, they said finally. I think it's time we learn to dream them instead. New Horizons. 5 years after humanity's introduction to the galactic community, the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council gathered for its centennial meeting. The massive chamber, traditionally arranged in rigid hierarchical tiers, had been redesigned in what humans called an open forum style. Representatives from thousands of species sat in organic, flowing arrangements that encouraged spontaneous interaction. High Counselor Vextal, their ceremonial robes now incorporating elements of human quantum textile technology, stood at the center. Beside them stood Admiral Sarah Chen, Earth's first representative to the Council's executive board. The chamber's quantum architecture hummed with the combined consciousness of its occupants, a technology that had become standard throughout galactic space. 5 years ago, Vextal began, their voice carrying naturally through the consciousness-enhanced acoustics. We thought we were coming to guide a primitive species into the stars. Instead, we found ourselves being guided into new ways of thinking about the universe itself. The holographic displays around the chamber showed scenes from the past 5 years. The reality anchor network that had saved countless worlds, the quantum commerce systems that had revolutionized trade, and the countless innovations that had sprung from combining human creativity with alien expertise. But perhaps most remarkable, Vextal continued, is not what humans have given us, but what they've taught us to give ourselves. Sarah stepped forward, her presence triggering a subtle shift in the quantum field that permeated the chamber. We never saw our chaos as an advantage, she said. To us, it was just who we were, but you showed us how to channel it, how to give it purpose and direction. The displays shifted to show new images. Alien children in creativity workshops learning to think human. Traditional scientific institutions incorporating dream logic into their research and hybrid technologies that would have been impossible just years before. The Void Crisis taught us that reality itself is more flexible than we imagined. Sarah continued. But it also taught us that structure and chaos, logic and dreams, are not opposites. They're partners in a dance that moves the universe forward. A young X-Relian representative rose, their crystalline form shimmering with excitement. My research team has been studying human historical records, they said. We've noticed that your species often made its greatest advances not through careful planning, but through what you call happy accidents. Exactly, Sarah smiled. And now the galaxy is learning to cultivate happy accidents while maintaining the stability that makes progress possible. The displays showed a new type of ship emerging from a quantum dock near Alpha Centauri. Its design was neither human nor alien, but something entirely new. A vessel that thought as it flew, adapting its very structure to the dreams of its crew. "We call it the Synthesis class," Sarah explained. "The first ship designed by a true partnership of human chaos and galactic order. It can think in quantum possibilities while maintaining faster-than-light coherence. It can dream new routes through space while keeping its passengers safe and stable." And its first mission, someone called from the assembly. Vextol's 4 arms moved in a gesture of profound significance. "The ship, appropriately named New Horizon, will lead an expedition beyond our galaxy, not to conquer or claim, but to dream new dreams in spaces no one has ever dreamed in before." The chamber erupted in excited discussion, representatives forming spontaneous groups to share ideas and possibilities. The rigid diplomatic protocols of the past had given way to something more organic, more alive. A quantum consciousness projection appeared in the center of the chamber, a real-time visualization of the combined thoughts and dreams of everyone present. It formed into a spiral of light, reminiscent of both DNA and galactic arms, spinning with possibilities. "This is who we are now," Sarah said, watching the display. "Not humans, not aliens, but dreamers who have learned to make our dreams real. Every species brings its own unique music to the cosmic dance." "And what comes next?" asked a representative from a species that had once prided itself on being able to calculate all possibilities. Sarah laughed, the sound rippling through the quantum field like a wave of joy. "That's the beauty of it. We don't know. And not knowing, that's where the real magic begins." The quantum projection shifted again, showing glimpses of possible futures, some logical, some wild, all filled with the potential that comes from combining different ways of thinking about reality itself. 5 years ago, Vextol concluded, we thought we were complete. We had mapped every star, categorized every phenomenon, created systems for every possibility. We thought we were finished growing. But then we met humans. They continued, their voice warm with affection, and they taught us the most important lesson of all. The universe is not a puzzle to be solved, but a story to be written. And the best stories are the ones where even the authors don't know what comes next. As the assembly concluded, representatives filed out through probability fields that would take them instantly back to their homeworlds. But many lingered, forming small groups to share ideas, to dream together, to imagine what might come next. In Earth's quantum markets, a new commodity began trading at record highs. Possibility futures. Not predictions or guarantees, but potentials. The raw material of dreams yet to be dreamed. The galaxy had changed, and would keep changing. And somewhere in the vast spaces between the stars, a ship called New Horizon prepared for its maiden voyage, carrying dreamers of all species into whatever impossibilities awaited them.